Hello, this is U.S. Immigration Attorney Sharifa Tharpe. I'm here live to take your U.S. immigration related questions. Go ahead and get started by putting your questions in the comments because I'm here to answer those questions. And I have a good one for you today. So, have you overstayed? Have you entered the country without permission? And is there still a way to get permanent residence or the work permit or both if you were in this situation? And my answer is yes, there is. I probably don't even have enough time today to talk about those options. Now, it doesn't mean that every single person that is in this situation where you overstayed or crossed the border without permission is going to have this option. However, there are many people out there who are in this situation and who are going through certain other life experiences, and they don't know that there is an immigration relief that's available to them, even in the case that they overstayed or crossed the border without permission. So I'm going to try to simplify those options and try to explain some of those options to you today. Now, why is that a thing, right? With, say, people who are at the border now trying to get into the country, how is it that you can't, once you get into the country, regardless of how you came, once you got in, why can't you just get a work permit and get a green card? Well, that's because there are certain laws, immigration laws, that dictate who qualifies for residence and a work permit. And so, yes, even though you might be here, you may be here physically here in the US, the question is, do you qualify in every other way to get the immigration benefit or relief that you're looking for? And that's where the consultation is essential. But I'm going to help you out today by talking about some of those ways. And if you relate to those ways, go ahead, give the office a call. And we also have a text feature now where you can now text the office. And that's another way to go ahead, get in touch with us, and schedule the appointment to get started on your evaluation. Now, let's go over some of those ways, right? So you can, and I refer to this as fixing your status, because if you're here and you have overstayed, then you can fix your status still. Or if you have crossed the border without permission, there are also ways to fix your status. In summary, those ways include through family, through VAWA, which you'll hear me talking about a lot. And when I say through family, it's only through a certain U.S. citizen family members, if you're the immediate relative of a U.S. citizen. And I'll delve into detail after I go through the summary here. Then there's if you have been the victim of trafficking, and you'll hear me explain what trafficking looks like under immigration law. There are certain laws that are available that are out there that protect individuals who have been in a labor trafficking situation or even a sex trafficking situation. Now, hear me out here. The trafficking, immigration relief for victims of trafficking is much broader than what you may be thinking about. Now, every day we hear about instances of trafficking. Just recently, there was big news about a factory that had a ton of child laborers working for them. Pretty sure that many, if not all, of those children are going to qualify for T visas because many of them were not legal here. But then, yes, that is commonly seen in the media, instances of child labor, instances where people are smuggled into the country and used for sex labor or sex slavery. We've seen this in the media. However, there are other instances of trafficking that it's not covered in the same way in the media. And so, trafficking, you could be trafficked by a relative, you could be trafficked by an acquaintance. Trafficking could mean that you were held here in the United States, you came here. Maybe you came here, the person convinced you to come here to go to school or to come and get a good job. Maybe they convinced you to come to do certain to get your papers. Maybe they promised you that they would get your papers for you. In those cases, where they lured you here under false pretenses, so that's what we refer to as fraud, and then they did not follow through with that, but instead they maybe had you here taking care of their children or had you here working in their house. That is also considered a form of trafficking. So it may, it's not necessarily a typical scenario where one is kidnapped or smuggled into the country and then, kept locked up somewhere. Those do happen, believe it or not. And I've had cases similar to that, but then they are a lot more nuanced in that it may be somebody that it may be a relative who they pretend as if they have the best intentions for you, and then they turn around and exploit you. So keep that one in mind. Hang on to that one. That is for victims of trafficking. But this is also a way to be able to qualify, even if you overstayed, even if you entered the country without permission. Also, if you were the victim of a crime and this crime was reported to the police or to law enforcement, not just the police, but could be the Department of Labor, that could also qualify you for the U visa. And the T and the U visa for victims of trafficking and victims of crime do lead to permanent residence eventually. There's asylum. So with asylum, if you are afraid to go back to your country, if you're here in the US or you enter the country claiming asylum because you don't want to return, you may fear, you may be the target of certain individuals because of your identity. So there's certain basis for asylum. If you are going to be targeted based on your religion, based on your ethnicity, based on your political opinion, and political opinion doesn't necessarily have to mean you're in the, for example, let's use Jamaica as an example. It doesn't necessarily have to mean you're really active in the JLP, and so the PNP is, the PNP members, majority of members in your community are targeting you. Surely that can qualify you for asylum. However, it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to do with political parties, but it could also have to do with other types of community advocacy actions that you're a part of. Or it could have to do with maybe your particular viewpoint. If you're being persecuted because of an opinion, and a type of political opinion that can be viewed, it's viewed, it's causing you to be persecuted by your community or by the police or by the government, not just the government, but by police, the community, other types of members in the community, and you don't trust the police, or the government isn't doing anything to protect you, the police aren't doing anything to protect you, then this can qualify you for asylum based on your political opinion. Um, Also, based on your sexual orientation. And in some, if you identify as a certain sexual orientation and you're being targeted because of that, that qualifies you as well. And then there's also a very broad category where if you are the member of a particular social group, this is where, for example, if you are, say, you are the victim of domestic violence. Domestic violence is so common, or such an accepted type of violence in your country, that maybe the police aren't protecting you. then this could possibly qualify you for asylum here. Now, for example, there are cases where women, commonly women, but it could be men as well, but women, there are cases where women have received asylum where they were being targeted by a spouse, and they could not leave the spouse, because if they left the spouse, they would be persecuted. They would be killed or injured terribly, and the community wouldn't really help to care, or the police don't really care to protect you, because it's such an accepted form of violence. You know, it's the usually when you find situations like that where someone is subjected to domestic violence and nothing is happening, the police will, if the police are called because you're being brutalized, police are called. If their question is, well, what did you do to make the spouse angry or the other individual angry, then you know that the police aren't really going to do much. And so if you're in a situation like this, asylum could very well be a possibility for you. Now, we talked about through family, through certain U.S. citizens, family members. We talked about the T and the U visa. I mentioned VAWA, asylum. So those are some ways that where you'd be able to stay here in the U.S., you'd be able to get your permanent residence, apply for your permanent residence, but in the meantime, get your work permit. So the T visa, the U visa, asylum allow you to get the work permit while you wait for the entire process to go forward. With the going through certain U.S. citizen family members, that also allows you to get a work permit, even if you overstayed, even if you're currently out of status. Now, you have to, and this is where the consultation is very important, because there are so many differences in eligibility just based on your circumstances. Because it's like, if you cross the border without permission and you have a U.S. citizen, a spouse, a parent, if you're under 21 and unmarried, or if you're the parent of a citizen and the citizen is 21 and over, then you can do adjustment of status while staying in the US if you overstayed. But if you cross the border without permission and you have no evidence that you were inspected coming into the country, or you were not granted parole, then you cannot do adjustment of status. There's another option, but it won't allow you to get your work permit and to stay for the entire process. That other option, I'll save for another day. But if you overstayed your visa and you have this US citizen relative, then you can stay here and still apply. Now, VAWA is an alternative to going through the family member if that family member is abusive or mistreating you. In the case of VAWA, if you have a US citizen or resident spouse, if you have a US citizen or resident parent, and you're under 21 or under 25 in some cases, or you have a US citizen, son or daughter who's a citizen, age 21 and up, and they mistreated you verbally. It could be physical, but physical is not required. Police reports aren't required. Medical reports showing injuries or pictures showing injuries isn't required, even though those are still good evidence. Some people tend to disqualify themselves without even talking to an attorney if they hear, oh, mistreatment or abuse. They think abuse only counts if it's physical and only counts if you can show beyond a doubt that this happened to you. And that's not the case with this VAWA. If you were mistreated verbally, emotionally, mentally, financially, if you were subjected to extreme cruelty, if your spouse is holding your immigration status over your head and they are doing this, that's mistreatment. That's abusive. No spouse, nobody or parent or adult child is supposed to hold that against you. They're supposed to help you to be safe and secure here in the United States. And so even if they're at a point where they're threatening your immigration status, they're threatening to send you back home or blackmailing you and telling you that if you don't do this, they're going to get you deported, that's a qualifying behavior for VAWA. VAWA is a form of relief, though, where you can apply without the relative involved. So the previous situation where I talked about the citizen relatives, where they have to petition for you, they have to be actively involved in your process. But with VAWA, it's an alternative where you're being mistreated. You don't involve them. They don't sign anything. They don't give any permission. The immigration will not contact them. As a matter of fact, it's against the law for immigration to contact them and tell them that you're applying on your own. You could still be living in the same household with them, although I do encourage everyone to secure your safety first. But you could be living in the same household and apply for VAWA. And we, of course, when we represent our clients, we make sure that they are protected in regards to where the mail is going to go and the arrangements we make with them to exchange important documents. All of that we make sure is secure. But VAWA is also a way. Now, with VAWA, it allows you to apply without not only a citizen spouse, a citizen parent, or a citizen child, adult child, but also without your permanent resident spouse, your permanent resident parent. So it's much broader, and it allows you to apply even if you came into the country without permission. So if you came into the country without permission, you can still apply for this. So that's the difference also with going through a citizen relative where they apply for you. If you can overstay, but you just can't, if you can't prove that you came into the country legally, that's where the problem is going to be, where you will not be able to move forward. But with VAWA, because of the sensitive nature of the situation where you're going to need assistance to get legal here because your relatives are mistreating you and you're stuck here without status, they do allow you to move forward without necessarily proving that you entered legally or that you have current status. You can overstay, or you could have entered the country without permission. So that does apply to you, and it is a valuable form of relief in those situations. So I talked about the T visa and the U visa. Here's my rule of thumb. So with the U visa, easy. If you've been the victim of a crime and that crime resulted in your physical or mental abuse, then you should schedule an appointment, and we can talk about how to move forward with reporting this, or if it has already been reported. For example, if you have been the victim of domestic violence, then we could move forward with a U visa. The T and the U visa allow you to get a work permit for 4 years, the ability to stay here, to fix your status, and then to apply for the green card. With the T visa, and also here's another valuable form of relief. For the T visa and the U visa, you not only do you get the status, but your spouse can get the status along with you. Your children under 21 and unmarried gets the status with you. If you are under 21 yourself as the applicant, your sibling who is under 18 and unmarried gets the status with you. Your parents also get the status with you. So it can go a long way, even though nobody wants to be the victim of trafficking or victim of a crime. If this has happened to you, just know that you have relief available. Don't be fearful to get in touch with us, to speak with me, because this is what I do. All our appointments are confidential, meaning what you tell me stays with me. And it's non-judgmental. I know you've probably been through a lot, but if you've been through this, then you could qualify for relief here. And we work, all of this is confidential, even at the immigration. They are very protective of your immigration process and of you during the process, because they understand some maybe you may still be in danger in some cases. And so they protect the information. So go ahead and give us a call, and we can sort through that and figure out which one of these you can apply for. Now, keep in mind that rule of thumb for the asylum, to schedule the appointment. If you fear going back to your country because you know you're going to be a target, you're being targeted, um, you will talk about the reasons you're being targeted and just determine in an appointment whether that can qualify you. But the number one thing you should be thinking about is, are you afraid to go back because you're being targeted? Are you being targeted because of your identity, because of what you believe in, because of who you are, because of some unchangeable characteristic that you have? For example, if you have a sixth finger on one hand, and there is discrimination against you, or straight up, if they're targeting you because of that sixth finger on your hand that you have no control over, then that could qualify you. Now, keep in mind, in some countries, for example, in Tanzania, they targeted albino individuals, people who had albinism, who they had no control over it, but they had certain practices. There were certain individuals who had certain practices, that where they used it for those practices. And because of that, many children were targeted. They had their limbs cut off. Some were killed because they felt like they could use their limbs to make magic potions or something of that nature. Those children, should they be in the US, could qualify. Of course, that is horrifically unimaginable. But there are people who are living through these kinds of situations where, because of the belief, the majority of beliefs in the country, or beliefs of certain groups in the country, they are being targeted. In Jamaica, some individuals are targeted because of their sexual orientation. And that does qualify you here in the United States to get relief through asylum. So go ahead and give me a call, and we can always talk through, what are your fears? Why do you fear going back to your country? Another basis for asylum could be, you are the target of gang violence. If you're in a certain area and you're being targeted by the gang because maybe you're not paying protection money, maybe you're refusing to join the gang, maybe you've provided information to the police. If that is the case, you may very well qualify for asylum, and you need to get in touch with me and let's talk about it. So that is going to be it for me. That's what I have to say. Now I'm going to go to your questions. I think I went longer than I should have. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the floor for everyone else to ask your questions. But now you have it. I just listed some ways that you're able to stay in the United States, even if you cross the border without permission, even if you overstayed your visa, ways that you're able to still stay here and apply for your permanent residence. All right, so I'm on YouTube, I'm on Twitch, I'm on Facebook, and I'm on Instagram. And it's so nice to see y'all and putting your questions in. Now I'm gonna answer. So let's go here first. I filed for the I-751 based on cruelty, and I'm divorced as well. Can I get married to my girlfriend, an American, while I'm awaiting on my I-751 to be adjudicated? So that is a complex question. This is where you should schedule a consultation. Now, technically, getting married to someone else who's an American isn't going to necessarily affect your I-751 as long as you have done it properly and you're confident in what you've presented. However, if you're thinking you're gonna get married to this girlfriend as a as a plan B. So say maybe in the future you're getting married because if you need to, if this gets denied, then you could go to plan B. That is going to be a lot more complex, and you have to be very careful about that. So it just depends here on what are your plans for the future, and what is your line of thinking here. Just getting married, fine, but um, getting married and then possibly thinking if you get denied here, you can just go ahead and apply again for a green card. It's not going to pan out that way. I was abused by so I was abused by my husband, moved out, filed for FAWA visa, but moved back in with husband. Can it affect the case? It could possibly affect the case because when they see uh, issues like that where you left, you said you left, and then now you're back with the husband, they're going to ask questions. It doesn't mean you can't overcome those questions, but they can ask questions about it. And if you don't handle those questions properly to give them a valid reason why you left and now you're back, that can definitely negatively affect the outcome of the VAWA because they could look at it that your claims are not credible. So, it just all depends on what the facts are. It's very fact based. All right. I'm scrolling through on Instagram, just looking for your questions. Can my 16-year-old US citizen son do anything for me? They have to wait until they're 21. I'm scrolling through, just bear with me. This live is always informative. Thank you. I'm so glad. I hope sometimes I tend to give you deeper explanations, and I hope I don't bore you, but I'm glad that I'm getting some validation here. I-360 petitions. So we're not gonna share that information, please. I need expedite request. So usually I do expedite requests where it's necessary for my clients, but I don't usually do those just based on someone who I don't represent. And it has to, usually when you do an expedite request, it really has to be valid. It can't be just because you want your case to go faster, but there has to be some urgent need, maybe some economic loss, significant economic loss, or a mistake on the immigration side that you can show. For work permits right now, if you are a child care worker or healthcare worker, they're pushing those, expediting those as well. So my friend was smuggled across the border by her now wife. It's been over a year now. She's abusing her very badly. She's scared to take actions because she came across the border. What can she do? Give me a call. This is the exact situation I'm talking about. Now, there are options here. The T visa is one, the U visa is one, and VAWA may be one if this spouse is a US citizen. If they're not a US citizen or permanent resident, then we can look at the option of the T visa, because this is what happens. They smuggle them across, and then when they get here, it doesn't matter that it's a spouse. If they smuggled you here and they got you here, and now they're abusing you, exploiting you, using you to work, taking away your money, doing things of that nature, then certainly there is an option here. So your friend should get assistance, and we're more than happy to assist. So I wonder how long VAWA is taking, filed May 2021. So we're looking at 2.5 years right now. And they have their longest stretch, which I believe is even up to 36 months by now. But I'm seeing an average of about 2.5 months. Hi there in Dubai. Thanks so much. So I sent my work permit expedite request through VAWA and adjust status, and my request has been approved for. Then when should you expect to receive the work permit? So in a matter of weeks, you should get it. Once they've expedited it, you should get it in the mail any minute now. Um, my I-130 was approved, but my I-485 is still pending. When will they approve my I-485? It depends on what's going on with that I-485. What's an RFE? A request for evidence. So if you get a request for evidence, it means they need some additional information before they make a decision. What if you don't have a way of entry? Well, if you don't have a way to enter the United States, then you're going to have to evaluate your options to come to the United States through qualifying means. Do you qualify through a relative? Do you qualify through work? Do you qualify, through even asylum? With asylum, usually it's more tricky. And that's why we have the border situation now, is because many individuals, including, I'm sure you've seen it now, Jamaicans, Haitians, Venezuelans, many individuals are trying to get to the Mexico border where they are claiming asylum. It's a lot trickier. The trip is dangerous and risky. But who am I to say anything when someone is trying to flee for their lives? So I'm not one to judge. I'm not one to say don't do it. But that is the option of asylum once you do get to the U.S. VAW was approved in January 2023. What is the average timeline for green card, both filed together? So then you could be looking at another year to get the green card. Uh, what if you don't have, okay, so good morning. What can you share about the I-94? I know someone who tries searching for it and it says no records found. What do you think she can do next? So there are ways to formally apply for a copy of the entry documents. And then you can also submit a FOIA, a request for documents. You can do it through the CBP, you can do it through USCIS, and you'd be able to get your entry documents that way. For a marriage-based green card consultation, does both parties have to be present? So not necessarily, as long, because sometimes one spouse works and they may not be available. I do require that when I am working with spouses, that they both are fully involved, and I am very picky with choosing individuals who I work with, just because I want to make sure that both of them are fully committed to the process. But for the consultation, if one can't make it, it's fine, as long as the one spouse is informed enough to provide me the information necessary to advise. Please tell me how much to submit the DS-260 form. So it's $325, and that's the DS-260 is the immigrant visa. So the immigrant visa application form, that once the I-130 petition for the green card is approved in the US, it's then moved to the National Visa Center, where they send out an invoice for the DS-260 application to process the green card at the embassy. What's the difference between an RFE and an RFIE? So I'm not sure what that difference is. What if your J1 visa is expired and you overstayed? What can be done? Well, that's really is a complex question, and it depends on so many different factors. One of which is, are you subject to the 2-year foreign residency requirement, which can limit your ability to adjust status here. So you have to be careful. What are the best ways to get the green card if I overstayed my visa? Oh boy. So I just talked about some of those ways. But if you're doing it through, if you overstay, they're very, very, very strict with employment based. So don't ever overstay with employment based, because an employer cannot sponsor you. And if an employer is telling you, even after you've overstayed, an employer has you strung along, they're telling you they're applying for your green card and you've already overstayed, they're lying. Okay, I can tell you that. And this may be a labor trafficking situation. So, this is where you should look out for yourself and get an appointment with me to talk about what's going on with that employer. If an employer tells you to overstay your visa first, work for them, and then they'll apply for the green card, lies. If you've already overstayed, the employer hasn't asked you for a lick of documents to prove you're legal here, and they're at the same time telling you come work for them and they're going to get your work permit, lies. Okay, so if that's the case, that employer is perpetrating fraud against you, and you could possibly qualify for labor trafficking if they are perpetrating fraud against you to get you to stay here to work for them. So that is also a basis to get the T visa. And I also want to warn those of you who have not been in this situation yet, but maybe that's happening, where you are seeing ads on WhatsApp, you may be seeing ads on Instagram, you may be seeing ads on Facebook saying, a recruiter or someone is saying they need hospitality workers, they need all sorts of workers, maybe group home workers to come here to the US on their visitor's visa to come here and work, and then they'll get you a work permit. Lies. Okay. If they are going to hire you, if you're already in Jamaica, or if you're already here, they have to get your visa, or they have to get your visa first, and they're not going to get a work permit for you. Work permits, there are special ways that you get work permit. It's not going to be the employer just independently applying for a work permit. So you're all the more wiser now knowing those facts, because I'm with my clients who have been the victims of trafficking. Many of them have been victims of these kinds of promises, and then they're dragged into work that they would have never done, and they're dragged into the kind of work they weren't expecting to do, just because a recruiter, usually the recruiter is a foreigner who or is in the country you're in. They recruit you and tell you just travel to the US with your visa. Or if you're already in the US, they set you up with a job, and then maybe you find you don't get paid as much as they promised. You're not getting that work permit or green card they promised, and you're stuck in horrible work conditions. So keep that one in mind. Please, can you tell me how much to resubmit DS-260 form? So it's $325. Yes, I'm subject to the 2-year foreign residency requirement. So I'm glad you brought this up. If you're subject to the 2-year foreign residency requirement rule, you'll have to apply for a waiver to get that forgiven before you can move on to another status, especially a green card. Get in touch with me and we can talk about that. So one option, you do have to show exceptional hardship to a U.S. citizen spouse or child, or you have to get a no objection letter from your country and use that no objection letter to then apply for a waiver at the Department of State. So it is quite a process. So make sure you get in touch with me. We can talk about what needs to be done. My friend is searching for I-94 and is saying records not found. What should she do? So you have to submit a request for that information from CBP, or you submit a FOIA request to be able to get that entry record. Okay, that's gonna be it for me today. Thanks everyone for your time. I appreciate it greatly. I'm gonna be back on Monday, where we'll talk about a topic again, and you can bring your questions. Ask me anything that's immigration related. Now you can text. You can text the main phone number. So that phone number you see going across the screen on Facebook, on Twitch, on YouTube, you can text now, and we will get back in touch with you via text or whatever you're comfortable with. You can text that or call the number. And then if you want to schedule your own consultation, go to the link in the description of this video, or go to the link on Instagram on the profile page, and you'll see the link. When you click on it, you'll see schedule your own appointment. And it's very easy to go through the steps to make your appointment. Get on my schedule because it is filling up. So if you want to get going on your immigration relief, get going on fixing your status and getting the work permit and green card, get on it now. Schedule your appointment so we can evaluate what have you been through here that will allow you to get immigration relief, because the options are much broader than you know. And if you are just joining me, rewatch this live, and you'll get kind of a lowdown on the options available, especially based on the things you've been through as you've made your journey here, or as you've been here without your papers. All right. Have a good weekend. I'll see you on Monday. Bye bye.